Chapter 151, a Tier 2 expert. Don't be rude, Mr. Bassett, Celestia called out. Yes, Ms. York. The elderly man, Adam Bassett, took 2 steps back. Meanwhile, Jeffrey was extremely nervous. He did not know what the 2 people before him intended to do. There's no need for you to panic. I'm the oldest daughter of the York family from Dord City, Celestia said. The Yorks of South Lake City have been massacred, and you're the sole survivor. As the main branch of all the York families in Diatorin, it is only right for the Yorks of Dord City to come forward. As long as you comply with us, you'll still be in charge of the company, and you'll even have the Yorks of Dord City backing you up. You'll certainly be able to easily establish yourself in South Lake City. After thinking about it, Jeffrey nodded and said, I'll do as you say, Ms. York. He was no fool. Now that the entire York family of South Lake City had been killed, it was hard for him to survive alone. Just staying alive was a feat in itself. He desperately needed someone to back him up. Celestia nodded and said with a smile, Excellent. You're smart. From today onwards, you'll be the chairman of York Group in South Lake City. Jeffrey was thrilled. Your wish is my command, Ms. York. I will do whatever you say. His reaction made Celestia's smile widen. South Lake City was a small city, after all. A small gesture of goodwill had been enough for her to win Jeffrey over. She did not come to South Lake City just to take over the York family's businesses. Her ultimate goal was the Two Lakes area. Otherwise, she, the oldest daughter of the York family, would not have come over in person. Meanwhile, Caspian and Sylvia had arrived at the lobby of York Group's building. Who are you? No one's allowed to enter without permission. The security guard barked at them after stopping them. Is York Group still up and running? We came to seize York Group and the rest of the York family's assets, Sylvia announced coolly. Who the heck are you? How dare you try to mess around here? Don't you know that the York family is the most powerful family in South Lake City? The security guard retorted scornfully. I'll give you 5 seconds to inform your boss of our arrival. If not, you'll be in for a world of hurt, Sylvia warned with a darkened expression. The security guard was just about to scoff in response, but Sylvia's piercing gaze made him shudder. Please wait. I'll inform them of your arrival right away. The security guard ran off and did as told. Caspian was not in a rush. Either way, sooner or later, the York family's assets and holdings would be confiscated. Mr. York, I have bad news. The security guard came to the office and yelled. Jeffrey had been busy flattering Celestia. Mr. York, there are 2 people down in the lobby. One of them looked very familiar. I think he's Caspian Lynch. They said they're here to seize the York family's business. The security guard reported shakily. He had abruptly recalled seeing Caspian on television before. What? What gives that useless trash the right to do such a thing? Jeffrey exclaimed. He was stunned. Why was someone coming over to seize the York family's business? Jeffrey, who's Caspian Lynch? Celestia asked. He's just a useless good-for-nothing, Ms. York. He's the Stewart family's metrolocal son, in-law. But then again, it seems like he does have some connections, Jeffrey replied. He did not know much about Caspian, but everyone knew that Caspian was useless. Why are you troubling Ms. York with such a simple matter? You can just drive them away, Adam piped up icily. What kind of connections could a useless person have? Furthermore, someone from the Yorks hold it. Celestia stood up abruptly and said, Lead me to the so-called useless good-for-nothing. I'm keen to know what gave him the nerve to do such a thing. Back in the lobby, Sylvia was getting impatient. Where are they? Why aren't they here yet? If she had her way, she would have marched into the office with a team of subordinates by now. When Jeffrey came down, he eyed Caspian and Sylvia derisively as he said, Are you Caspian Lynch? What gave useless trash like you the audacity to cause a scene here in the York family's territory? The York family. Haven't they been wiped out? Could it be that you're one of the Yorks too? Caspian asked as he studied Jeffrey. He had never seen the latter before. He thought the entire York family had been wiped out by now. You have no grounds to interfere with the York family's assets. They're a branch of my family, the Yorks of Dord City. Therefore, their assets belong to us. Celestia came forward and said, The Yorks of Dord City. Never heard of them before, Caspian said curtly. Sylvia whispered into Caspian's ear. Caspian, the Yorks of Dord City is the main branch of the York family. The Yorks of South Lake City were merely one of their auxiliary branches. Was that all? Caspian had thought that the Yorks of Dord City had some kind of prominent background. Why had they suddenly popped out to seize the company from the investigative team? They were asking for trouble. Care to make a bet, pretty lady? Caspian said as he eyed Celestia with a meaningful gaze. What do you mean? Celestia asked in confusion. Someday, the Yorks of Dord City are going to kneel before me and beg for mercy, Caspian declared with a mocking expression. As soon as he finished speaking, Adam, who was standing behind Celestia, began exuding a murderous air. You bastard. Do you know who you're talking to? You've got a death wish. As those words rang out, a silhouette dashed forward. Riled up, Adarn attempted to attack Caspian. His expression was stormy as he tried to punch Caspian. Jeffrey was stupefied. Adam had looked like an ordinary elder, but it turned out that he was such a skilled fighter. A Tier 2 expert. Sylvia remarked with a smirk before striking. There was a low thud as Sylvia's attack sent Adam crashing to the floor. Mr. Bassett, are you all right? Celestia exclaimed with a frown. Adam looked at Celestia. He was just about to speak when he felt an excruciating pain coming from his chest. Is that all you can do as a Tier 2 expert? Sylvia commented nonchalantly. Truth be told, Adam was a fairly good fighter, but alas, he paled in comparison to Sylvia. Celestia grew anxious. She never expected someone as powerful as Adam to be knocked down with a single strike from a woman. Adam was on the verge of becoming a Tier 3 expert. Even in Dord City, he could be considered a powerful figure. Celestia could not figure out who Sylvia was. If Sylvia possessed such terrifying power, just how much stronger was Caspian? The latter had not even moved. Do you know how powerful the Yorks of Dord City are? You're in big trouble now, Celestial declared as she stared at Caspian. You talk too much. Get the hell out of here, or you're all going to die. Sylvia threatened menacingly. These people were getting in the way, so it was perfectly reasonable for her to do away with them on the spot. However, that did not scare Celestia. Her clear eyes were fixed on Caspian. Are you the one who killed the Yorks of South Lake City? Celestia asked. Chapter 152, An Ambitious Person. With just another woman in tow, Caspian came over and demanded to seize the assets of the Yorks of South Lake City. It meant that he had come prepared. As the oldest daughter of the York family of Dord City, Celestia was a sharp woman. She did not believe that a man as bold as Caspian would be the useless matrilocal son-in-law that the rumors claimed he was. In response to her earlier question, Caspian said indifferently, "That's none of your business." "Fine, but this isn't over yet. Just you wait." Celestia did not waste her breath. She helped Adam up and left. She knew full well there was no point in her staying. Adam could not defeat Caspian and Sylvia. The Yorks had to get someone even stronger over to deal with them. Staring after Celestia's retreating back, Caspian grew thoughtful. He could tell she was an intelligent woman who knew how to cut her losses. That being said, anyone who got in the way of the investigative team would pay with their life. So what if the Yorks of Dord City got involved? In Caspian's eyes, they were nothing. Caspian, would it be a problem if we got into conflict with the Yorks of Dord City? Sylvia asked. Why would it be a problem? The investigative team has been given enough power, Caspian said with a chuckle. Sylvia nodded. Caspian had a point. Though the Yorks were somewhat of an influential family, they were insignificant to Caspian. Furthermore, the king of Diatoran had bestowed the investigative team with sufficient authority. Upon seeing that Celestia had left in a hurry, Jeffrey turned pale with fear. He thought he could make it big in South Lake City with the help of the Yorks from Dord City. You must be the York family's only survivor. Huh. If you want to stay alive, settle the paperwork at once, Sylvia said to Jeffrey after approaching him. The rest of the Yorks in South Lake City were gone. It did not matter that he had survived. Since he was alive, it meant he had not gone to the cliff of death that day, so he did not need to die. Yes, of course. I'll do it right away. Jeffrey responded helplessly. When his life was at stake, nothing else mattered. After seizing the York family's assets, Caspian headed to Southlake Corporation to see Willow. "What's the matter, hubby? Why did you come to the office to look for me today?" Willow asked. She was surprised to find that Caspian had come to the company. "What did you just call me?" Caspian asked dazedly. It was Willow's first time addressing him as hubby. Caspian felt a warm, gooey feeling washing over him. "Oh, I called you hubby. What about it?" Willow asked with a laugh. She and Caspian had grown a lot closer these days. Nothing. "I have something to tell you," Caspian said after calming himself down. He could sense that his relationship with Willow was improving. They were becoming more like a married couple now. "What is it? Go on. I need to get back to my work later," Willow said. She had just become the CEO and had a lot of things to handle every day. "My old classmate suddenly told me that he bought over York Group before he left for abroad." "This is the agreement," Caspian said as he placed the agreement on Willow's desk. Willow was startled. "Which York family does this York Group belong to?" Willow asked while checking the agreement. "Is there another York family in Southlake City?" Caspian asked. "Huh." Willow was stunned. She was already swamped with work while trying to manage Southlake Corporation, but now, there was York Group as well. Just how rich was Caspian's old classmate? "All right, you can get back to work now. I still have other things to attend to, so I'll get going," Caspian said. He knew he needed to give Willow time to digest the news. One thing was for certain. In the coming days, Willow was going to be extremely busy. At the same time, everyone else found out that Southlake Corporation had bought over York Group. Willow's name was the talk of Southlake City. Over at Regal Club, Leonardo was holding a cup of coffee in one hand while flipping through some documents with the other. He studied the information carefully. It seemed to be a detailed report about a certain someone. He began reading some of the information aloud. Caspian Lynch, the matrilocal son, in-law of the Stewart family in Southlake City, who used to be a soldier. Over a month ago, he held a grand wedding. He had conflicts with the York family and Flying Dragons. He even helped Joey Sanders, the current head of the Inspector General's office, wipe out many of the men from Flying Dragons. A week ago, the York family hired Dark Blades, a team of hitmen, to kill Caspian, but the hitmen disappeared without a trace. The massacre of the York family and Flying Dragons seems to be related to Caspian, but there's no means of getting more concrete information. Leonardo was thunderstruck. Was Caspian truly nothing more than a matrilocal son-in-law? Was he the one who massacred the York family and Flying Dragons? "Leonardo." Celestia's voice suddenly rang out. Snapping out of his reverie, Leonardo spotted the pale-faced Adam with a streak of blood on the corner of his lips. "What happened?" Leonardo exclaimed in shock. "Mr. Bassett got hit," Celestia explained. Leonardo and the Reaper exchanged glances. Who would have the nerve to attack someone from the York family of Dord City? Moreover, Adam was a Tier 2 expert. How could an ordinary person injure him? "Who hit Mr. Bassett?" Leonardo asked hesitantly. "I don't know her name. I just know she was with Caspian Lynch," Celestia replied as she shook her head. She did not expect a woman to defeat Adam. Caspian Lynch. Leonardo froze at the mention of Caspian's name. "How are your investigations coming along?" Celestia asked. "Ms. York, I found some clues. I was just about to report them to you. According to the news and information I gathered, the massacre of the York family and Flying Dragons is closely connected to one person." "Who is it?" Celestia questioned. "Caspian Lynch," Leonardo answered. Was it truly the Caspian she had met earlier? Celestia was taken aback. When she saw Caspian's seemingly aloof demeanor, she had a feeling he was no ordinary person. Leonardo's information seemed to be proving her right. "Leonardo, send some people to kill Caspian at once. Since he dared to attack us, we can't let him get away with it," Celestia declared coldly. Caspian had not only taken over the York family's business, but his subordinate had even injured Adam. Celestia would not let this matter slide. As the oldest daughter of the York family of Dord City, Humiliation before. Leonardo was stumped. Even Dark Blades, the team of hitmen the York family of South Lake City hired, failed to assassinate Caspian. That was enough to prove how strong he was. Or, perhaps, he had someone protecting him. Still, Leonardo had to obey Celestia's command. He hurriedly nodded and said, "Rest assured, Ms. York, I'll see to it." Celestia nodded and said, "Good. I like loyal and dependable people like you. Actually, I came to South Lake City for one other reason, and that is to take full control over the Two Lakes area. Sometime soon, the Yorks of Dord City will be sending some people over. Once everything's settled, you can get anything you want as a reward. Thank you, Ms. York." Leonardo finally realized what Celestia was truly after. The York family of Dord City wanted to use the Two Lakes area to establish a foothold for themselves. Although Leonardo had control over a large amount of territory in the Two Lakes area, apart from South Lake City and North Lake City, there were over a dozen other cities in the region. It would not be easy to gain full control over the entire Two Lakes area. Chapter 153, The Company That Came Out of Nowhere. It never occurred to Leonardo that the Yorks of Dord City would be this ambitious. They wanted to gain full control over the Two Lakes area. "I'll leave it to you to get rid of Caspian," Celestia said before leaving the club with Adam. Once she was gone, the Reaper's expression darkened. "What should we do now, Sir Leon?" Leonardo sighed before saying, "The Yorks of Dord City have their hearts set on expanding their influence. It's impossible for us to distance ourselves from the situation. We have to find a way to get rid of Caspian. If we don't, the Yorks will come after us. Even Mr. Bassett couldn't defeat Caspian. How can we get rid of him?" the Reaper asked worriedly. Tier 2 experts like Adam were rare enough as it was. If he could not defeat Caspian, it meant they needed to find an even more powerful person. Lately, South Lake Corporation has been on the rise, and Caspian's wife has become the CEO of that company. So, let's target the company, Leonardo decided after giving it some thought. He was already formulating the perfect plan. A few days later, South Lake City was thrown into upheaval. Glorious Group, a company as big as South Lake Corporation, had suddenly materialized. Furthermore, its primary investor was a Tigran. In terms of financial power, manpower, and resources, Glorious Group outperformed South Lake Corporation. It immediately started working on 2 major property developments. Glorious Group even sent out invitations to many of the local companies in South Lake City. The Archer family and the Hudson family both chose to collaborate with Glorious Group. Some of South Lake Corporation's old clients also chose to terminate their contracts and work with Glorious Group instead. Upon hearing that Glorious Group offered better salaries and benefits, many of South Lake Corporation's employees jumped over as well. It all happened so suddenly that Willow was caught off guard. She had only just started managing South Lake Corporation and thought that York Group's buyout would strengthen the company. She did not expect the sudden emergence of the Glorious Group. "What's going on? Why are so many people resigning out of the blue?" Willow asked the human resource manager. The employees heard that Glorious Group offers a lot of employee benefits and would even compensate any losses incurred if they resigned from their previous jobs. Unable to resist the temptation, they chose to jump ship, the manager reported helplessly. He never would have thought that South Lake Corporation, the company everyone fought to join, would one day face such a crisis. "I see. You can get back to your work now," Willow said. Glorious Group was clearly going up against South Lake Corporation. The suddenness of the crisis left Willow at a loss. She had no choice but to try and discuss a possible strategy with Miranda. "I'm aware of what's happening, but I also can't think of a good way to counter the situation, Ms. Stewart," Miranda said. Despite her years of experience as a businesswoman, she did not have any means of dealing with this. "Many companies have terminated their contracts with us. If this continues, South Lake Corporation will fold," Willow said anxiously. No matter how established a company was, without any business partners, it would slowly go bankrupt. Willow had a thought. "I know. Let's get the previous CEO to come forward. I'm sure he can think of something." Caspian's old classmate seemed like a wealthy man. He would undoubtedly have a way to overcome this crisis. Miranda was a little speechless. She had considered this option, but it was clear that Caspian was not good at managing a company. That CEO is my husband's old classmate. When I get home tonight, I'll ask him if he can get his classmate to come over, Willow said. That night, when Caspian got home, he saw Willow looking down and troubled. What's the matter, Willow? You look upset. Did something happen? Caspian asked, concerned. The company's run into some serious trouble, Willow said worriedly. Lately, a new company popped up in South Lake City. It's called Glorious Group. Not only is the company expanding rapidly, but it's even offering its employees a ton of benefits. Many of South Lake Corporation's employees have resigned to join them. Even our clients and business partners want to terminate their contracts with us. In a few days, I'm afraid South Lake Corporation won't even be able to operate anymore. I didn't know this was happening, Caspian said in shock. He had disregarded the business world altogether since he had been busy handling matters with the investigation team. Can you ask your classmate to come back and come up with a strategy to help the company overcome this crisis? Willow voiced her request. He has already moved abroad, so he won't be able to come back anytime soon. But don't worry. I can call him and ask him about it, Caspian assured. Do you have any information regarding the head of Glorious Group? It was just a company. Caspian thought he could definitely find a way to kick the company out of South Lake City. I don't know much. All I know is that his name is Greg Norris, Willow answered while shaking her head. I got it. Don't worry. I'll think of something, Caspian firmly stated. Even though Willow did not fully believe Caspian could turn things around, the determination in his eyes made her choose to trust him. Following that, Caspian called Sylvia. What do you need me to do, Caspian? Sylvia asked. She knew he would only be calling for urgent matters. Look into Glorious Group, Caspian instructed. Got it, Caspian, Sylvia replied. 10 minutes later, Sylvia sent all the available information on Glorious Group to Caspian. He was startled to find that the owner of Glorious Group was a Tigran. After recalling the incident at the embassy of Tigra, the situation dawned on him. Tigra had sent someone to establish Glorious Group to tackle him. They came prepared this time. As they dared not rely on military warfare to get back at Diatorin, they planned on duking it out in the business world. The information included an important piece of news. 500 Special Forces soldiers from Tigra were hiding inside Glorious Group. They had concealed their true identities. Caspian, should we arrange for an elite team to come over from South Eridlands just in case? Sylvia asked concernedly. Glorious Group was dead set on bringing chaos to South Lake City. That won't be necessary. We have 30 Special Forces soldiers. That's enough, Caspian said. But our enemy has over 500 highly skilled soldiers. We don't have enough people on our side, Sylvia said anxiously. Have you not experienced being outnumbered by your opponent before? Just do as I say. If we move a military unit over, it's bound to alert the enemy, Caspian said. His tone left no room for discussion. Understood, Caspian. Let me know what you need me to do. I'll be right there, Sylvia replied. After ending the call, Caspian continued to ponder the situation. This crisis was a test for both him and Willow. Chapter 154, adding insult to injury. Caspian's act of barging into the embassy of Tigra to capture Zachary in the past had caused both countries to be on bad terms. Many protests arose from Tigra over this violation, but they did not dare wage war with Diatorin. For this reason, they chose to start a business war instead. They then deployed their elite teams here. Tigra only had one goal, and it was to tear up Diatorin from the inside. Someone from Glorious Group had contacted Carl from Stewart Group. They had proposed a lucrative offer in hopes of cooperating with them. This matter had gotten the attention of the entire Stewart family. Marilyn immediately called for a meeting. What are everyone's thoughts on the cooperation with Glorious Group? Marilyn asked. There's no need to think about it. I'm all for it. That company had already caused a stir in the business world when they'd only been in South Lake City for a short while. Many companies had terminated their contracts with South Lake Corporation and approached Glorious Group. Their profit margin is the highest in town, Donald said. unable to contain his excitement. It would be a really great opportunity for Stewart Group if they could work together with Glorious Group. Terminate all cooperations with Southlake Corporation right away, even if it means we have to pay for the breach of contract. This is our chance. Marilyn said, Mom, will this be fine? It was us who begged Willow for a project in the beginning. Now you're saying we should just end it. Carl said, in a dilemma. Carl, what is business all about? The maximization of profits. Now that this grand opportunity is lying right in front of us, we ought to grab onto it. Donald said, Yes, I'm sure the conditions offered by Glorious Group are tempting, but just think about it. Compared to the long-established Southlake Corporation, Glorious Group's just started out. There's just too much uncertainty at this point. Carl argued. That's enough. I've already made my decision. End the cooperation with Southlake Corporation. I'll personally contact Willow about this, Marilyn said. She had already made up her mind. At the same time, she planned to organize a family dinner and invite both Willow and Caspian over. She wanted to let them know about this matter. At Southlake Corporation, Willow was drowning in company matters when she received a phone call from her father. Willow, there's a family dinner tonight. Your grandmother would like you to come back for a visit. She has something to tell you, Carl said. Dad, can we just discuss it on the phone? I'm really busy, Willow said. This is a really big matter. I think you should come back. Bring Caspian along, he said. He did not know how to tell her that the family wanted to end their cooperation with Southlake Corporation. Willow gave Caspian a call. What's the matter? Willow. Caspian was currently at the hospital. Avon was helping him treat his gun wound. There's a family dinner at Stewart residence tonight. My grandmother told me to bring you, Willow said. Sure, I'll pick you up after work, Caspian said. He agreed to go as he did not have any urgent matters to attend to. Dealing with Glorious Group was not something that could be resolved overnight as well. Caspian hung up the phone. Caspian, your leg's fine. Don't do strenuous activities. Remember to apply medicine on time, and you should be able to recover in a few days, Avon said. Got it. Caspian nodded his head. During this period of time, Lana and Elias also had their injuries treated by Avon. The two had almost fully recovered. Both of them were really grateful to Caspian. They thought they would never be able to stand on their 2 feet again. Thankfully, the doctor that Caspian hired was highly skilled. Their treatment took roughly a week for them to be able to stand up again. It was at this time that Joey came to the hospital. Caspian, what a coincidence. Joey had come to the hospital to look for Lana. She was surprised to see Caspian there. I got shot and received my treatment here. What brought you here? Caspian was also surprised to find Joey there. Jory was the Inspector General, so naturally, she would not have so much free time on her hands to be at places. I came to look for Stephanie to learn more about the situation, Joey said. Hi, I'm Stephanie. How may I help you? Stephanie asked. She was just standing at the side. Ms. Wildman, nice to meet you. I am Chief Sanders, the Inspector General of Southlake City. I came here to learn more about Lana, Joey said. She had been in charge of handling Ezekiel's case these days. At the same time, she also knew that there was something off about Lana's case. Stephanie was pretty surprised. She did not expect that the Inspector General would personally inquire about this matter. She then summarized the entire incident for Joey. Lana also gave her own statement regarding this matter. I'm going to advise you not to interfere in this case. I will handle it, Caspian said to Joey. You? Could you handle it? Joey asked, taken by surprise. I have my ways of handling it. Even if you know the Lincoln family was behind this case, would you dare to take action against them? Caspian asked. What makes you think I won't? I'm the Inspector General. I have the authority to arrest them, Joey said with conviction. I really hope that's the case, Caspian said nonchalantly. He no longer bothered to stop Joey. Caspian left Southlake Hospital to pick Willow up. Then, they headed towards Stewart residence. Every family member of the Stewart family had already arrived. When Willow saw Alicia and Richard, she suddenly felt annoyed and asked, Why are you here? Caspian scowled upon seeing the two of them. After the Silverstone Hotel incident, It was rather surprising to see the two traitors shamelessly show up at a Stewart family dinner. Why can't we come? Since when did Stewart residence become your territory? Alicia said smugly. Since they were in Stewart residence, Alicia did not need to be afraid of them. What's going on with the both of you? Settle down and eat your food, Marilyn said. Willow did as she was told. She did not want to disclose the hotel incident. Grandma, what did you want to talk about? Just tell me now, Willow said. Willow, I'll just tell you right away. You must have heard about Glorious Group. They suddenly wanted to cooperate with us. The profit margin would exceed our current arrangement by manifold. We've already decided to terminate our cooperation with Southlake Corporation, Marilyn said. Willow was stunned when she heard this. She had actually wanted to let Stewart Group take over a few more projects in hopes of helping Southlake Corporation out. However, after hearing what Marilyn had just said, all her plans went down the drain. Everybody knows that Southlake Corporation is already a setting sun. There was no way to get it running like usual, is there? Somebody thought that she had won after becoming the CEO of Southlake Corporation. From what I see, the company's about to go bankrupt soon, Alicia said with a look of disdain. Everyone else followed suit. Each one of them kept adding insult to injury. Willow never imagined that everyone in the Stewart family would be this harsh. Chapter 155, You are at my mercy. Believe me, I'll lead Southlake Corporation out of this crisis. But I need your help. As long as Stewart Group can take some projects over, Southlake Corporation will definitely have your best interest at heart. Willow was feeling helpless. The company was indeed in a critical situation, and her only option was to beg the Stewart family. Willow, I suggest that you stop spouting nonsense. In fact, you are not cut out for this position at all. Glorious Group is strong. What are you going to use to fight them? Donald mocked. Do you really want to terminate all the contracts with Southlake Corporation? We have it in black and white. Any party that terminates the agreement has to pay damages for breach of contract, Willow said. The amount is so small. It's nothing. As long as Stewart Group can work with Glorious Group, the profit would exceed tenfold, Marilyn said. Caspian was utterly speechless. He never expected that the Stewart family would choose to end their collaboration at this crucial moment. Back then, when Marilyn was begging him for the opportunity, she looked a hell lot different. These relatives of Willow had completely broken her heart. They chose to pick this crucial moment to add fuel to the fire. Willow finally saw her family's true colors. Caspian finally spoke out for the first time that evening. He asked, Have you really thought it through? You really want to end all cooperation with Southlake Corporation? Since when was it your turn to speak out, loser? Stewart Group has already signed a contract with Glorious Group, Henry said scornfully. That's right. It's just as Henry said. Our family has chosen to work with Glorious Group, Marilyn said. Caspian, you know you can just stay silent, right? Who gave you the right to speak? Besides, does Southlake Corporation have anything to do with you? Now that Willow's in trouble, what would a loser like you do to help her? When Kate heard Willow's company was going through tough times, she felt infuriated. And Caspian became her punching bag. Will everyone just shut it? I will get through this crisis myself. I don't need any of you to help me, Willow said coldly. She immediately stood up and left. Caspian followed behind her and left Stewart residence as well. On their way home, Willow was bawling. Willow, why are you crying? I'll help you settle the problems, Caspian comforted. I'm not crying because of the company. It's the family. The way they treated us really disappointed me, Willow cried frustratingly. They will definitely regret their actions today, Caspian said calmly. Caspian's words got Willow's attention. She asked, Caspian, could it be that you have a way to save Southlake Corporation? I haven't thought of anything yet. But for now, let's find some place to eat. You didn't get to eat anything just now, Caspian said. Okay. Willow nodded. They went to Jade Dragon Grand Hotel, the place where they had their wedding ceremony. When Caspian and Willow sat down to have their meal, they saw the hotel's employees standing in 2 rows at the grand entrance. It looked like they were awaiting the arrival of someone important. A group of people dressed in expensive clothes entered the hotel. The person leading the way was someone tall and fat. Behind him were his bodyguards. Clad in black person was Greg Norris, the CEO of Glorious Group. This person was Greg Norris, the CEO of Glorious Group. Those trailing behind him were all the managers and cream of the crop of Glorious Group. Some of them were even dignitaries from South Lake City. Greg was new in town. To expand his business, he had to figure out ways to win over the business tycoons of South Lake City. Hence, he had invited these important guests over to Jade Dragon Grand Hotel for a banquet. Caspian saw Belden among the group. "Aren't you Ms. Stewart, the CEO of South Lake Corporation? Nice to meet you," someone blurted. He was an ex-employee of South Lake Corporation and was surprised to see Willow there. Once he finished his sentence, everybody had their eyes on Willow. Greg saw Willow and admired her pretty figure. He even took a few more glances before walking up to her to greet her. "If it isn't the most beautiful woman in South Lake City, it's such a surprise seeing you here. I don't know you. Please leave." Willow was already in a foul mood. This person was giving her the creeps. She could not help but feel annoyed. "Miss Stewart's temper sure is fiery. I am Greg Norris, the CEO of Glorious Group," Greg said while smiling. Willow and Caspian looked at each other. They did not expect to meet Greg here. "If there's nothing else, please leave me alone," Willow said, feeling rather frustrated. "I'd like to invite Ms. Stewart to join Glorious Group." "What do you think?" Greg said. "Impossible." Willow rejected. "Oh, really? Just wait till I bring down South Lake Corporation. I wonder if you'd still be this arrogant then." Greg guffawed. "Why are you buzzing around like a fly? Aren't you done?" Caspian saw how disrespectful Greg was acting and had to chime in. He could never get used to people like this. "You must be that infamous good-for-nothing son-in-law, Caspian," Greg mocked. "That's right," Caspian said calmly. "What should we do? I think I like your wife. How about you let me have her, and I'll consider sparing South Lake Corporation." Greg laughed maniacally. He had just finished his sentence when a cup was smashed on his forehead. Greg yelped as he was burned by the boiling water that was inside the cup. He started jumping around in pain. Caspian was the one who threw the cup onto his face. Everyone thought Caspian was a pushover, but this was not the case. If anyone disrespected his wife, he would never let that person go. Mr. Norris. The bodyguard behind him was shocked by what he had just seen. Willow did not see that coming as well. She felt that Caspian had acted recklessly. Greg even had bodyguards with him. If they were to start fighting, Willow was worried Caspian would be the one to suffer. This sudden act of aggression caught everybody off guard. Caspian went straight for Greg. Nobody saw this coming. With Greg's current status, your average Joe would never dare to lay a finger on him. "Caspian, you punk. You dare attack me." Greg was seething. The president of Glorious Group was being humiliated by a loser like Caspian in front of everyone. "Anyone who dares to touch my wife, there's only one thing in store for you, death," Caspian said chillingly. "Do you know who I am? I am the boss of Glorious Group. You must be sick of staying in South Lake City." "Huh," Greg yelled. "So, you're clearly from Diatorin, and yet you crave that Tigra nationality. Mark my words. If you try to do anything funny in South Lake City, I will make sure to kill you." Caspian simply retorted. "You ignorant bastard. I'll have you punished here in front of everybody." Greg was livid. The situation became tense instantly. His bodyguards had all gone into formation and were ready to strike. Chapter 156, Endless Troubles. "If you have a death wish, just try me," Caspian said coldly. Business might not be his expertise, but when it came to fighting, he was more confident than anyone else. "Do you really think we Tigrans are weak? If I were to kill you here, nobody would come after me. After you die, I will take good care of your wife," Greg said smugly. Caspian was furious. He was just thinking about ways to get rid of Glorious Group. As long as Greg was the one to start the fight, then he would have a reason to destroy them. He was the Diaturanian god of war. It would be a piece of cake for him to get rid of Greg. Caspian was surprised that Greg was acting arrogant in front of him. Did Greg not know his identity? Or perhaps there was a mastermind behind the scenes, and Greg was just a pawn. You will regret stepping into Diatorin. Caspian was ready to strike. If Greg had a death wish, he would help make it come true. Go, end him. Greg cried out in rage. The burly men behind Greg started charging toward Caspian. The violent scene unfolding in front of them shocked Willow. These men looked so strong and menacing that she was not confident Caspian could defeat them. Caspian's face darkened. Then, he leaped up. The shadow of a fist flashed by. What followed was the sounds of people wailing. Next thing they knew, all of the bodyguards were writhing in pain on the floor. They did not even get to see Caspian make his move. The Diatoranian god of war equaled an army of millions. Fighting these men was child's play to him. Everybody was stunned after witnessing Caspian's impeccable skills. He had so easily defeated the bodyguards from Tigra. Greg and those behind him trembled. Nobody expected that these strong men would be defeated by Caspian in the blink of an eye. They were all throwing up blood. It was even hard for them to stand up. The fact that he would attack Greg at Jade Dragon Grand Hotel came as a surprise to everyone. Caspian approached Greg. "What do you want?" When Greg saw that Caspian was coming toward him, he was scared. "Teaching you a memorable lesson." With that, he slapped Greg in the face. The slap sent him into a state of dizziness. He fell to the floor. This scene left everyone speechless. Caspian was not done yet. He raised a leg and stepped on Greg's chest. At that moment, Greg felt the weight of a mountain crushing down on him. He started coughing up blood. Everybody at the scene could not believe their eyes. Caspian had the audacity to attack Tigran's. "Asshole, get your leg off me." Greg felt like he was going to pass out. "Do you believe that I can just kill you now?" Caspian said coldly. He did not lift his leg. "I believe you," Greg quickly said, now that his bodyguards were also subdued. Greg knew the situation was not looking good for him. He had to minimize his losses. He could only give in. "If you're from Tigra, don't come to Diatorin and create trouble." Caspian trampled on him even more. Greg turned pale. He could no longer utter a word. "Caspian, what are you doing? He is the CEO of Glorious Group. If news of this were to get out, everybody would think that Diatoranians are all barbarians. How humiliating would that be?" Belvin suddenly came forward and said, "Be quiet. He was originally from Diatorin, but he wanted to become a Tigran. Isn't that treason?" Caspian was even angrier now. He stepped on Greg even harder. Greg winced and threw up blood. Although the people at Jade Dragon Grand Hotel were surprised by what they had seen, they felt satisfied. Greg was indeed a traitor to his country. If you kill him today, there will surely be a war between Diatorin and Tigra. When that time comes, you'd be the one to blame, Belvin said, frustrated. Would Diatorin fear a war raged by Tigra? Believe me when I say that Diatorin can destroy the entire Tigra within a few days, Caspian said fiercely. If he killed Greg right then and there, he could also solve Willow's problems. How reckless. Let go of Mr. Norris immediately if you don't want me to call the Inspector General, Belvin said as he took his phone out. He was not aware of Caspian's real identity. Caspian was not afraid. Nobody in the whole of South Lake City had any authority over him. "Caspian, please stop. What will happen to me if you're arrested?" Willow said when she finally came to her senses. She had to stop him immediately. Caspian gave it a thought. He decided it would be for the best to release Greg first. He seemed relatively useless. There had to be someone who was controlling Greg from behind the scenes. Whoever was behind him would definitely not be as shameless and reckless. When Greg's men saw Caspian lift his leg, they rushed forward to help Greg up. "Mr. Norris, are you okay?" "Mr. Norris, I'll get you an ambulance." Everybody was panicking. "Bring me to the hospital right away." Greg no longer had the appetite for dinner. His entire chest was throbbing with pain. Those who were with Greg had also left the hotel. "Caspian, are you okay?" Willow asked. "I'm fine. I'll get rid of anyone who dares to lust after you." Caspian menacingly. Hearing this, Willow suddenly felt touched. A woman's biggest wish was to have their man protect them unconditionally in any situation. You've attacked Gray. Do you think he'll let it go easily? Willow asked, feeling really anxious. Don't worry about it. Let's have our dinner, Caspian said with a smile. After both of them had their meal, they left the hotel. Willow went to the recently acquired York Group for inspection. If she could run both Southlake Corporation and York Group well, they could easily get out of this crisis. Jeffrey remained the general manager of the company. When he first learned that York Group was acquired by Southlake Corporation, he was taken aback. Willow and Jeffrey were discussing company matters when a security guard rushed in. He was panicking. Miss Stewart, something's gone wrong. Willow scowled and asked, What's the matter? Speak slowly. There's a group of people who came out of nowhere. They said they're here to look for trouble, the security guard said as he gasped for air. Go and see. Willow did not see this coming. She had just arrived at York Group, and something was already brewing. Caspian was worried that something might happen to Willow, so he was always nearby. When he saw the group of people in the lobby of York Group, he waved his arms. Sylvia came right over from a Cath. Sylvia, how'd your investigation go? Caspian asked. He had already asked Sylvia to look into Celestia in advance. Caspian, these people work for someone called Leonardo Xanthos. He's very influential in the Two Lakes area. He also has the York family from Dord City backing him up. The one you had a conflict with Celestia, she came to South Lake City for a purpose. She was not only looking to obtain the York family's estates, but also to take over the entire Two Lakes area, Sylvia said. Chapter 157 Too weak. Caspian smirked and said, That must be why. But their mistake is thinking they could just come to South Lake City and cause trouble. We can take this opportunity to reform the Two Lakes EA. Have our special forces deployed. Yes, Caspian. Sylvia answered sternly and went into action right away. Caspian wanted to see how many more would come forward to find trouble with them. Glorious Group and the York family from Dord City would pay for all that they had done. Meanwhile, at the entrance of York Group, screams could be heard in the distance. The bodyguards of York Group had all been taken down by the Reaper. What a useless bunch. How dare you stop me? The Reaper was getting ready to have his troop infiltrate the building when he was interrupted. What are you doing? I'll call the Inspector General and have them send officers over to arrest all of you, Willow said. Now that Southlake Corporation had acquired York Group, she had a duty to protect the company. I work under Sir Leon. Today, we're here to take back the estates of the York family, the Reaper said with a chilling smile on his face. Willow was puzzled. She had never heard of someone called Sir Leon before. Jeffrey, who was standing in the corner, had a sullen look on his face. He said, Ms. Stewart, Sir Leon is someone influential in the Two Lakes area. Nobody in that area dares to go against him. I'm afraid we have a huge problem now. Willow became fearful after hearing this. She did not expect that things would be so chaotic lately. Problems kept arising one after another, and she was starting to feel helpless. The estates of the York family belong to Southlake Corporation now. If you want to take it, you'd have to fight for it. Caspian was the one who spoke. He had been silently observing the situation for quite some time before finally revealing himself. Willow was surprised to see Caspian here. However, she knew that Caspian would be staying close to her so he could protect her. These days, as long as Caspian showed up, Willow would feel really protected. Who are you? The Reaper had his eyes fixed on Caspian. I'm Caspian, he replied calmly. The Reaper's face hardened upon hearing Caspian's name. You're that son-in-law of the Stewart family, aren't you? The useless one. Caspian smirked. He did not know that he was this famous. Seeing him smirk, the Reaper started feeling anxious. According to what they had heard, the massacre of flying dragons and the York family had something to do with Caspian. Even Adam was not his match. Caspian, do you know who I'm working for? Sir Leon of the Two Lakes area. I'm sure you've heard of him before. If you know what I mean, you'd better stay out of this. The Reaper had even brought up Leonardo's name. His name was known by everyone in the Two Lakes area. The common folks would never dare to go against him. Are you threatening me? Caspian asked. He then threw a powerful punch. The Reaper did not see this coming. How reckless of you! the Reaper shouted. He drew the sword on his back and slashed in Caspian's direction. The Reaper had no reservations. Now that he was facing off Caspian, he did not dare to be careless. Even so, what happened next made everyone's jaw drop. The Reaper was being flung away. Meanwhile, Caspian was just standing there, unmoving. The Reaper had his eyes wide open in disbelief. Subsequently, he felt a great pang coming from his chest. One single punch. All it took was one single punch, and he was already so severely injured. I thought you were some amazing fighter. I guess you only know some third-rate moves. Tell your Sir Leon that I'll give him a few days. Get him to come here and apologize. If not, I'll make him disappear from the Two Lakes area. Caspian said as he gave a chilling smile. Everyone was extremely shocked. Where did Caspian come from? How could he be this boastful, arrogant bastard? I'd like to see what you're capable of today. The Reaper lifted himself up and said through gritted teeth, "End him." A dozen of the Reaper's sidekicks charged toward Caspian. Faced with this situation, Caspian looked like he was upset. Everyone who saw Caspian's expression would think that he was getting frightened. Right when they were about to corner him, a figure appeared all of a sudden. "How dare you attack him?" Sylvia took a leap and rushed forward. As she spoke, she had already knocked down all of the Reaper's sidekicks. What just happened? The Reaper was dumbfounded. He did not even get to see her moves. What surprised him the most was that Caspian had someone this powerful with him. "Watch me." The Reaper grabbed his sword tightly, ready to strike at Caspian. He had no other options left in this situation. However, Caspian did not attack this time. Sylvia stretched out her leg and kicked the Reaper in the chest. He felt a jolt and was thrown out once again. The Reaper was utterly stunned. Was she the one who defeated Adam? All this while, he thought he would never get to meet a worthy opponent in the Two Lakes area. It turned out that he could not even win against the women who worked with Caspian. The Reaper felt a blow to his pride. "Why are you still here?" Caspian yelled. The Reaper brought his men with him and left in a hurry. It was clear to him now that he was no match for Caspian. Moreover, it wasn't even Caspian who attacked him just now. Jeffrey was still like a deer caught in the headlights. He did not even move an inch from where he was standing. The Reaper was considered the best fighter in the Two Lakes area, yet he could not even defeat a woman. Caspian's powers must be truly terrifying. Then, Jeffrey now realized how the York family could be destroyed entirely just like that. He felt lucky to have not gone to the cliff of death then. If he did, he would definitely not be alive today. Jeffrey did not dare to slack off. He had already made up his mind to work diligently at York Group. Meanwhile, panic was taking over the Regal Club. "Sir Leon! Sir Leon!" the Reaper shouted as he staggered his over to Leonardo. What happened? Leonardo was shocked to see the Reaper covered in injuries. "Sir Leon, I was going to seize the York family's estates with my men, but one of the women with Caspian had us beaten up." "What?" Leonardo's jaw dropped. In the Two Lakes area, the Reaper was almost unrivaled. So, how could he not have managed to defeat a woman? "Caspian wanted me to deliver a message to you." The Reaper hesitated for a moment. "What is it?" Leonardo asked. He said you have 5 days to go over to him and apologize. Chapter 158, Spending money like it is nothing. Bastard! Leonardo was enraged. He kicked the coffee table in front of him, flipping it over. It was made from marble. His kick had smashed it to pieces. If anyone else saw this, they would definitely be shocked. People would take a glance at Leonardo and think that he was gentle. In reality, he was a legendary fighter. People only knew about the Reaper's ability. However, Leonardo's skills were far above the Reaper's. In recent years, however, he never had to show himself. Seeing Leonardo so worked up made the Reaper feel that Caspian was someone truly horrible. His request was totally unreasonable. "Gather the best fighters of the Two Lakes area. I'm not only seizing the York family's estates, I'm going for South Lake Corporation as well," Leonardo proclaimed angrily. He had always been the one to trample over others. Nobody had dared to go against him before. Caspian was the first one to do so. "Sir Leon, Caspian's not easy to deal with. It'd be better if we took the time to come up with a detailed plan. the Reaper suggested. Suggested? What do you mean? You really want me to go over there and apologize to him? Leonardo said through gritted teeth. There was no way he was going to apologize. Sir Leon, please don't be angry. That's not what I meant. We need not use violence with Caspian. We can totally use other ways to defeat him, the Reaper quickly added. What do you have in mind? Leonardo asked. South Lake Corporation had acquired the York Group. Now, they suddenly have this competitor called Glorious Group. As long as we think of a way to destroy South Lake Corporation, won't we get what we wanted? Leonardo gave it a thought. He then smiled. Very good. That's a good idea. Tell everyone in the Two Lakes area that whoever dares to cooperate with South Lake Corporation is going against me. Yes, sir. Then, the Reaper retreated. A piece of fearsome news soon started to spread like wildfire. Leonardo Xanthos, the supreme leader of the Two Lakes area, had spoken. He would end South Lake Corporation and the York Group. Upon hearing the news, Jeffrey became really anxious. Soon, all of the other companies were racing to end their cooperation with them. There was nothing he could do. His only option was to approach Willow to discuss the issue, but she could not even save South Lake Corporation, so how was she supposed to handle the matters of York Group? Their situation was even worse than York Group's. She could not afford to mind about other matters. Right when Jeffrey was about to leave, Caspian entered his office. My wife sent me here to let you know that South Lake Corporation is prepared to acquire all of the companies that terminated their contracts. This matter requires York Group to be the one to come forward and acquire the companies, no matter their sizes. In reality, this was entirely Caspian's idea. He had a solution in mind. Jeffrey was utterly shocked. What kind of method was this? South Lake Corporation could not even save itself. Now, he was saying they would acquire all of the companies that wanted out. Was he pulling his leg? Mr. Lynch, I'm afraid Ms. Stewart is still unclear about the situation. Both South Lake Corporation and York Group are facing a great obstacle. Overcoming this issue would already be an impossible feat. Jeffrey had heard about the recent crises faced by South Lake Corporation. Caspian stared at Jeffrey and asked, if I were to give you $20 billion now, could you acquire all of those companies within a day? $20 billion. What? Jeffrey was stunned. He could not comprehend what was happening. Was Caspian playing a joke on him? $20 billion. Jeffrey was dumbfounded. He was not sure if Caspian was joking with him. However, he dared not doubt Caspian's words. Looking at Jeffrey's expression, Caspian continued asking, is $20 billion not enough? How about $50 billion? No, no, no. It's enough. Jeffrey cried out. $20 billion to acquire those companies. It was more than enough. Caspian mentioned such a huge amount so effortlessly. It felt like he was bluffing. Very well, then, I'll have my people send the money, Caspian said. He sent Sylvia a text message. 2 minutes later, the finance manager ran toward them. General Manager, something weird just happened, he shouted. What is it? Please speak slowly. Jeffrey frowned. Someone must have transferred it by mistake. Our company's account suddenly had an additional $20 billion. The finance manager scrambled for words. The figures on the account shocked him greatly. He thought there must have been a technical error in the company's financial system. He had to triple check to confirm that this was real, that there was an additional $20 billion in the company's account. Afterward, he had rushed over to Jeffrey. $20 billion was not a small amount. Jeffrey was truly stunned. He did not expect to have the $20 billion deposited into their account within such a short time. Everyone looked at Caspian, dazed. What are you staring at me for? Take the money and get to work. Whether South Lake Corporation can come back to life depends on you guys now. Oh, but please don't let Willow know that I'm the one who gave you this money. I wanted to let Glorious Group see how strong my capital is, Caspian said nonchalantly. This meant that the $20 billion must be his. Jeffrey suddenly felt intimidated by Caspian. He must have gotten a powerful backing. Hence, when the York family sought trouble with Caspian the last time, they were simply asking for death. Caspian's calm expression made Jeffrey anxious. It was as if this $20 billion was something trivial to Caspian. Jeffrey had thought that the York family was powerful. Then, he changed his mind and thought the York family from Dord City was more powerful. But now, they all looked tiny compared to Caspian. Got it, Mr. Lynch. I will make sure to get the work done. Jeffrey took a deep breath. This was his chance to prove himself. Caspian then left York Group. He did this because he did not want Willow to discover his identity. Half an hour later, there was yet another breaking news. This news caused quite a stir in South Lake City's business world. This news was none other than the acquisition of all the companies that had terminated their contracts with South Lake Corporation. It was said that South Lake Corporation had entrusted York Group with the acquisition. The companies were all acquired, no matter how big or small. This was like a big joke to everyone in the business world. South Lake Corporation was already at its end. Where could they have gotten the money to acquire other companies? As for the York Group, without the York family's support, they were supposed to be an empty shell. Just as everyone was waiting to hear the joke, York Group had begun their move. Huge amounts of M were spent just like that. The $20 billion from Caspian was enough to acquire these companies more than once. While doing all this, the York Group's market value increased by 2 or even 3-fold. All of the shareholders had their hands raised in support. It only took half a day for York Group to acquire those companies on behalf of South Lake Corporation. When Jeffrey brought a stack of the acquisition contracts to Willow's office, she was completely dumbfounded. When she heard about the acquisition from Jeffrey, she thought he was joking. However, when she saw the acquisition contracts, she could no longer doubt it. How did this happen? How did York Group have this much funds to acquire these companies on behalf of South Lake Corporation? Willow asked as she flipped through the agreements. She could not believe it. Chapter 159, The Red Order. Willow was still in disbelief as she looked at the contracts on the table. Ms. Stewart, I'd recently learned that our company still had a lot of funds. Plus, a mysterious man had donated $20 billion to York Group. And that's when I decided to acquire the companies that had terminated their contracts with us. I personally did this to get us out of this difficult situation. You wouldn't blame me, would you? Jeffrey asked politely. He had followed Caspian's orders and covered up Caspian's part in this matter. $20 billion. This amount shook Willow to the core. That was a massive amount. Who could have such a huge amount of funds at their disposal? You've done well. Do you know who that person is? Willow asked. She did not find it suspicious that York Group still had some extra funds, as the company had been in South Lake City for many years. It was normal for them to have these funds. What puzzled her was this mysterious stranger who helped them. That was such a huge amount. Willow could not comprehend it. I don't have any news about this person at the moment, but I've already arranged for someone to find out. Miss Stewart, I have a suggestion. Why don't we have both groups merged? This way, we'll become more powerful. Jeffrey presented his idea. He had already decided to rely on Willow and South Lake Corporation. For that matter, I would have to discuss it with Ms. Barton, Willow said. She then called for Miranda to come to her office. When Miranda heard of this news, she was very surprised. However, she agreed to this merger. This way, South Lake Corporation could launch its counterattack. Okay, after the merger, we'll get through this crisis together. Willow looked determined. At first, she was still feeling distraught over the matters that had been bombarding South Lake Corporation. However, things suddenly changed for the better. Willow took this as an opportunity and rekindled her confidence once more. Half a day later, South Lake Corporation and York Group gave their announcement at the same time. Both companies had decided on a merger. York Group of South Lake City had officially become a branch of South Lake Corporation. After this news got out, everybody in South Lake City was shocked. Both companies were influential in South Lake City to start with. Now that both had also spent a significant amount in one, they had become much stronger than before acquiring many companies. Meanwhile, the news had sent a fury raging through the Regal Club in the Two Lakes area. Leonardo flipped the club upside down in a fit of rage. Why? Where did they get such a huge amount of money from? He was seething and yelling in the club. He had initially planned to take over your group, and then move on to Southlake Corporation. He never thought they would suddenly merge and acquire so many other companies. Leonardo had shares in those companies. This sudden change of situation caused him to lose a considerable amount of money. How could he not be furious? The Reaper also did not see this coming. You tell me, where could they have gotten the funds from? How did they do it? Leonardo had his eyes fixed on the Reaper, as he yelled, I'm not sure. Your group suddenly had a huge amount of money, and started placing it in the market. The stock market had also become volatile due to a sudden influx of huge amounts of money. There was a rough estimate that it was about $20 billion. What? Leonardo was stunned when he heard that. How could this be possible? How could your group suddenly have that much money? They don't have the means to, Leonardo said in a fierce tone. I'm not sure either. I've asked my people to investigate. The money came from a locked account. I couldn't get anything on the giver. After Jeffrey had acquired the other companies, he immediately handed all of the agreements to Willow. It seems like Southlake Corporation is getting ready to fight back. The Reaper felt rather useless. He would usually be able to get his hands on the information about such cases. However, he could not find anything out about this mysterious account. Since they've merged, we must take over Southlake Corporation by hook or by crook. If we don't do this, and they get over this crisis, our position in the Two Lakes area will become weaker. Leonardo suddenly realized that Southlake Corporation was not to be underestimated. After giving it some thought, Leonardo looked at the Reaper and decided, notify our people in the Two Lakes area. Issue the Red Order. Have all the top guns come to Regal Club. We shall discuss ways to get rid of Southlake Corporation. Sir Leon. The Reaper's face stiffened. He appeared to be in disbelief at what Leonardo had just said. The Red Order was only to be issued at the most dire time and emergency. Having been a follower of Leonardo for so many years, this was his first time encountering such a situation. I'm on it. The Reaper left the club right away to execute the order. After he left, Leonardo was again engrossed in his evil thoughts. Caspian, I'm really curious about your true identity. Leonardo threw a powerful punch at a giant tree in front of him. The tree then shattered and collapsed. After leaving the hospital, Greg received a phone call from Taylor. He immediately rushed back to Glorious Group. He was anxious because Taylor was the true owner of Glorious Group. Upon reaching the office, Greg saw Taylor sitting in the office with a sullen look on his face. Mr. Kemp, is there anything urgent going on that you rushed me here? Greg asked, trembling. Without warning, Taylor smacked his palm on the desk. He appeared to be infuriated. Fuck. How did Southlake Corporation still have the funds to acquire other companies? And who even is that Jeffrey York guy? Taylor had been waiting for the right moment to bring Southlake Corporation down. He did not expect the situation to change drastically within less than a day. Willow's act of merging both companies had brought the situation into a stalemate. I heard that a mysterious man gave Jeffrey a large amount of money. That was how he could acquire so many companies. He then handed over all of the acquisition documents to Willow. I suspect that this had something to do with her. She must have been afraid that we would overpower Southlake Corporation, so she had York Group to do the acquisition, Greg said in a panic. He was at the hospital the entire time and did not get to learn much about this matter. He did not know the details. I heard you were beaten up by Caspian, Taylor asked. Yes, I was. Caspian was merciless. I'm fine with him beating me up, but he was disrespecting Tigra. He even boasted that Diatorin could defeat Tigra in just a matter of a few days. Mr. Kemp, what's Caspian's real identity that he could be this arrogant? Greg asked. That bastard. He must have a death wish to be so pompous. You don't have to know his real identity. Just know that he's someone you can't afford to offend, Taylor said in a serious tone. Fortunately, he was prepared this time round. He had already brought hundreds of his elite fighters to ambush Southlake City. Oh, right. I have news for you, Mr. Kemp. We can join forces with the Supreme Leader Leonardo Xanthos. He's also in conflict with Caspian. If we work with them, we can definitely destroy Caspian and Southlake Corporation. Greg suddenly had an epiphany. Chapter 160, an assembly of forces from all corners. That's not a bad idea. You'll be the one to contact Leonardo. We must join forces with them, no matter what, Taylor said with determination as he slapped his thigh. The enemies of Caspian were their friends. Yes, sir. Greg nodded. He then left the office. After Greg had left, a foreigner named Bob walked in. He was the leader of Tigra's special forces. Mr. Kemp, when should we start? Bob asked. There's no rush. We must have a plan. Caspian has many elite soldiers protecting him. We only have one chance to get rid of him. We must not make any mistakes, Taylor said. What's a few soldiers gonna do? We have hundreds of men. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to take Caspian down? Bob asked with a look of disdain on his face. Don't forget Caspian's real identity. He is Lord Caspian, the Diaturanian god of war. He could defeat millions of troops, so what's a mere 100 soldiers to him? You'd easily lose to him, Taylor said. To defeat Caspian, they should not be careless in the slightest. They only had one chance. If they were to miscalculate any step, it would surely be a deadly mistake. But we can't possibly just wait and do nothing, Bob asked eagerly. Of course not. I've sent Greg to find a partner whom we can work with. I'm going to let the Diaturanians kill each other. Also, don't forget our purpose of coming to Diatoran. We're here for the treasure around South Lake City, Taylor said. Setting up a company in Diatoran was just a facade. Their real purpose for coming to Diatoran was to embark on a treasure hunt. Their target was a mountain range about 25 miles northwest of South Lake City. The experts of Tigra had secretly surveyed the area and discovered priceless treasure there. They came to Diatoran for two reasons only: to destroy Caspian and loot the treasure. The reason why Glorious Group caused a huge stir in South Lake City was to attract the attention of everyone. So, the distraction could give Taylor's people more time to search for the treasure. Bob guffawed. He then said, "What a bunch of idiots. They seek petty profits and are oblivious to the existence of the mine. There's even an infinite amount of treasure inside. We were lucky to have gotten our hands on a sacred scroll back when we were fighting with Diatoran for land. It has records of Diatoran's hidden treasures and their locations. It's assumed they knew nothing about the treasure since they never had the sacred scroll," Taylor said. "Mr. Kemp, as long as we could have the treasure transported out and kill Caspian, you would have done great service to our country," Bob said happily. "Don't worry. Your contribution will not be forgotten at the end of this mission. As long as Caspian's destroyed, you and your troops could have any equipment you want. I'll make it happen." Taylor patted Bob on the chest. Bob was thrilled to hear this. He had decided to take up this risky mission to kill Caspian because of the lucrative reward. It might be slightly dangerous, but the reward was simply irresistible. "If I killed Caspian, would I become a wanted fugitive in Diatoran?" Bob asked, slightly worried. "Don't worry about that. If he gets killed, the entire Diatoran will be in chaos. You would not even cross their minds by then. Besides, you have Tigra supporting you from behind. What are you afraid of?" Taylor said with a smile. "Okay. I'm curious to see how powerful this Diaturanian god of war is," Bob said. Then, he left the office. Meanwhile, a huge crowd had gathered at Regal Club. After the red order had been issued, all of the aces of the Two Lakes area had assembled at Regal Club. At the order of Leonardo, each one of them came from all directions and gathered together. "Hey, do you know why Sir Leon issued the red order?" "I'm not sure. It's the first time in decades that the red order was issued, isn't it? I guess chaos is breaking out in the Two Lakes area soon." They were all talking around and speculating. They did not even know what had caused Leonardo to be so enraged. "Sir Leon has arrived," a loud voice suddenly announced. Silence washed over the club. Everybody straightened their backs and anticipated the arrival of Leonardo. Leonardo appeared with a sullen look on his face. Following behind him was the Reaper. He was glowering. None of the fighters dared to look directly at Leonardo. Leonardo was satisfied to see everyone so well behaved. It seemed like his status in the Two Lakes area was still as strong as ever. The red order was issued today for an important matter, and that's to bring down South Lake Corporation. Everybody started whispering upon hearing this. South Lake Corporation. Aren't they going bankrupt soon? This corporation used to be influential in South Lake City. However, it seems like they've been facing some difficulties lately. Who said so? South Lake Corporation had turned the tide yesterday and acquired a lot of companies. Everybody was speculating why Leonardo wanted to wage war against South Lake Corporation. Quiet, the Reaper shouted. In an instant, the entire club had quieted down. South Lake Corporation's subsidiaries are naturally part of the York family's estates. The York family from Dord City had ordered me to seize this portion of their estate. If I fail this mission, I'm afraid I'll lose my foothold in the Two Lakes area. Also, Caspian, the husband of South Lake Corporation's CEO, had the Reaper beaten up, Leonardo said angrily. Everybody was shocked to hear this. They looked at the Reaper. He was well known in the Two Lakes area. He had played a part in helping Leonardo get to his position as the supreme leader today. But now, he had been beaten by someone named Caspian. Caspian, isn't he the useless son-in-law of the Stewart family? He's that powerful. That's right. I've heard about him before, too. A few of them had heard of Caspian before, but none of them knew the extent of his powers. Everyone. We'll make our move tomorrow and bring South Lake Corporation down. Leonardo stood up and said with a sinister look on his face. Sir Leon, someone wants to see you. He claimed to be Greg Norris, the CEO of Glorious Group. A security guard at the club suddenly came over and said, Glorious Group. Greg Norris. Leonardo was momentarily stunned when he heard the name. Glorious Group had been the talk of the town these days. Leonardo had heard a few things about Glorious Group. However, they never had any contact with each other. What could the CEO of Glorious Group possibly want from him at this critical time? Let him come in, Leonardo said as he waved his hands. After a while, Greg finally walked into the club. When he saw what was going on, he was taken aback. He was trembling as he entered the club. I'm Greg Norris from Glorious Group. It's an honor to meet you, Sir Leon, Greg said with utmost politeness. Standing in front of him was Leonardo. His charisma was off the charts. Greg Norris, I've never been in contact with Glorious Group. Why have you come to look for me? Leonardo asked curiously. Sir Leon, we would like to join hands with you. Caspian is my enemy. I have hundreds of men who are ready to fight him. Let's work together and get rid of both Caspian and South Lake Corporation.